Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Retro Pop Planet, and you asked for it, so I'm producing. Here is another Jim Morrison video. Thank you guys for all of the comments. I'm really happy that we struck up an exchange on YouTube where we talked all things Jim Morrison. Thank you guys for your insights. A lot of you gave me some really good feedback, some suggestions of places, and some of you even shared some of your personal stories about Jim or Jim adjacent. That really helped me feed this extra video that we're doing here. Today we are in gorgeous Old Town Alexandria. I will say that I do pick the worst time to do these Jim Morrison videos because it's supposed to be almost 100 degrees today here in the month of May, and the last couple weeks it's been pouring down rain nonstop. So Jim is definitely inhabiting the spirit of these videos. So I'm starting today's video here on the banks of the Potomac River, down off of King Street. We're gonna make our way up King Street and see if we can't find some of the locations that I've been told that he hung out. And fittingly enough, Love Me Two Times was playing on my Sirius XM as I was parking. And then see where our adventures will take us from there. All right, you'll have to bear with me because we're right in the flight line of National Airport. But in Jim's time, it is said that he loved exploring the docks that were down here on the Potomac River waterfront. The Orange and Alexandria Railroad ran through here, and there was a bunch of docks along this shore which were abandoned in a lot of disrepair. And it's said that Jim used to like to come down here and talk to the fishermen and just the sort of the vagrants and the other folk that were kind of hangers-on down in this area. Apparently it was very diverse, and he would strike up conversations with a lot of the folks that were regulars down in this area. I'm going to be basing some of my research again today on Mark Opsasnick's outstanding book, The Lizard King Was Here. A lot of the surviving buildings like this one, this probably was an old factory at some point. Since been converted into offices. In my reading, he used to like to hang out down here on one of the main piers that would jut out into the Potomac. This has all been changed and upgraded over the years. I'm not even sure if this is the original pier location. It does extend out, but it's in this modern decking, and there's 2 sightseeing cruises plus the DC water taxi that leave from here. So, but this is a really cool point where you can see into the Potomac. So on a beautiful day like it is today, this would be an awesome spot to just come hang out, maybe journal entry, doodle in a sketchbook, read a book, you name it. So that bridge you see there off in the distance is the Wilson Bridge, connecting Virginia and Maryland. Maryland's on that side of the river. There was a Wilson Bridge here, however, it was much, much shorter, and it caused a lot of traffic delays because the bridge would actually have to turn in order to allow certain heighted boats to get in through here. Now you can just sail right over. On the other side of the river there is National Harbor, which did not exist. And obviously the MGM Grand over there in Maryland did not exist either. Another area that he reportedly liked to hang around is the old torpedo factory here, which used to make torpedoes and I believe was abandoned at the time that he was here. Now it's a art studio, it's an art league where people can pay and they can display their art, and they also work here in return. And it's really cool if you're looking for independent artists. This is a really awesome place to just come hang out, check out a lot of indie artists, and maybe buy some artwork while you're in town visiting. Once you're inside, the artist exhibits are located across all 3 floors. There's also some old memorabilia like torpedoes scattered about, as well as more information about the timeline of the operations here. I often wonder if Jim ever expressed interest in joining the Navy like his father. He at least would have been familiar with ship's operations and maybe expressed a fascination with the inner workings of this factory. It's also possible Jim was interested in what's now known as urban exploration. Back then it would have just been called plain old trespassing. Here we are at the intersection of King and Union Street, and one of the biggest issues in this area when we get a heavy rain is that it always overfloods the street. Sometimes I've seen it as high as this window here. And when we first moved here, this building was actually abandoned, and now it's a Starbucks. But this is the John Fitzgerald building. He was an associate of George Washington. So this building here is very old. Here on the corner of the Waterfront Marina building, this is actually the tide marker here. And if you're a biker here, Union Street cuts through. This is part of the Mount Vernon Trail, and it picks up again down there through Old Town. Now, during the pandemic, they closed off this area to downtown eating, and they decided to keep it as is. It's so much nicer. The traffic down here used to be unbearable, and now there's extra seating for some of these old restaurants that actually don't have a lot of seating in them anyway. And it's a much nicer addition to Old Town down here. But this was admittedly pretty seedy in the 1960s. It hadn't undergone this redevelopment like you see it today. So I can relate to Jim in the sense that when I was in high school, junior, senior year, around the time that he was living here, we used to like to come hang out in Old Town. We'd go to the restaurants, but they were incredibly expensive. So there wasn't a whole lot we can do here outside of maybe Ben and Jerry's and just walk around, venture in and out of some of the shops and just people watch. But it was something that we liked to do at that age as well. And I'm talking like 1990s. So here at 107 King Street is the fish market. Now, this has been the fish market since we moved here to Virginia. But according to my research, it was a place called the Snack Bar, which Jim had been seen hanging out with. Actually, apparently a lot of the teenagers used to like to hang out down here. 107 King Street. Charles Eugene Gee, who went by Tony, was a pioneering African-American business leader. Most people remember Tony as the proprietor of the Snack Bar restaurant here on Lower King Street. Originally hired by the Gallardi family in 1958 as a porter, he eventually purchased and ran the restaurant here. Tony moved it to Delray, where it remained in operation until 1993. And if you plan on traveling to the area and you're looking for restaurant recommendations from me, why would you? But the fish market is very good, and the behind me Il Porto Italian restaurant is one of my favorite Italian restaurants in Northern Virginia. So I need to do some more research, but I'm pretty sure a movie was filmed here, and it might be one that I cover on a future video on the channel. is like tour group central here today. And as you can probably tell, I'm just kind of giving you a sense of what it would have been like just walking up down these streets on a weekend when Jim had time away from school, time away from his family, either hanging out with friends or just hanging solo. There's a lot to do down here. And here we are out front of the Alexandria City Hall building. Okay, looking at my guide, this was the Hollywood Diner at 705 King Street. And I guess this was another popular hangout with the kids. It's kind of ironic that it was called Hollywood Diner. And of course, if you're looking to catch a beer, Murphy's Irish Pub is a really great place to hang. And the Light Horse next door to Murphy's is also a really fun place to hang out on a Friday and Saturday night. Like any modern teenager, Jim Morrison loved his thrift shops. Now this one was not here, but it's kind of funny. That sign up there for Nickel Box Furniture looks very, very old. And I'm assuming that would have been here in the 1960s. Behind me here at 815 and King was the site of the old Richmond Theater. Now, it's no secret that Jim was an avid lover of movies. In fact, we know he went and studied at UCLA Film School after transferring from school in Florida. I remember this being a theater, and the exterior has definitely changed. It's now a Patagonia. I'm actually happy the Patagonia is here because at one point I heard that they actually were going to demolish this building. At least the structural historical bones are intact. This place struggled for years. It was abandoned, then it was bought, then it was abandoned again. So I'm just happy that something was able to move in here. Can I just say also that I really lucked out having all of these locations on one side of the street so I didn't have to keep crisscrossing. Okay, 915 King Street, just a few blocks up from where we started. This actually was a Salvation Army thrift store. And apparently this was one of Jim's favorite hangouts here in Old Town because he could get a lot of used books from a number of different authors and clothing. Actually, I take that back. It was 919, and so I'm not sure exactly which one because there's an A, B, and a C. 919 is that one, and then the 917, and then we were just there at 915. So it actually probably was the Salvation Army. Okay, we're gonna hang right here onto North Fayette from King and make sure we don't get hit by a dump truck. But this is 118 North Fayette, and this was a Goodwill, or Goodwill Industries, I guess as they were called back then. And so this was another one of Jim's thrift stores, and I'm assuming as soon as he got off the bus, this probably would have been one of the first spots he hit before he went down, walking down King. So I did this video directionally out of order, and that's mainly because I parked on the waterfront. But the direction that Jim would have been heading from his home in Delray would have been walking towards us. At the end of this road is the King Street Metro, and just past that is GW High School, or the former GW High School. Just beyond that is Delray, where he lived. So he would have walked this direction, probably stopped off at the Goodwill first, and then continued on, sauntering down King Street. This is a lot of stuff representing Old Town Alexandria. I was looking to see if I could find anything Jim Morrison related, but I guess the only mural is the one that I showed you in the previous video that is in Del Rey, which makes sense because that's where Jim lived. There's a bookstore there on the corner. You know, I can't find a date on this King Street Cafe. It looks kind of old, but this is the typical type of place that I believe Jim would have liked to have frequent. Simple lunch counter, probably not ordering food, maybe a really, really cheap cup of coffee with free refills and just sitting there all day and writing poetry, reading. I almost forgot to talk about the Majestic here behind me. This is a very, very old restaurant. It's been here since 1932. Now, this is not a place that Jim would have come. This would have been a place for old people and squares, but it's conceivable that his dad might have dined here with other top military brass when he was a resident or when he was actually in town. I just grabbed a po' boy at this Volo restaurant here, dockside, right on the water on a friend's recommendation. But now we're gonna go up to GW Middle School. There's another location up there. We're gonna head that way now. So I'm right next to the ball fields here at the old George Washington High School. It's now the George Washington Middle School. You saw this in my last episode. And it's a school day today, so I'm not going on to the grounds here. Interestingly enough, I don't know if I mentioned in the last video, but this is also the school that's featured in Remember the Titans, the movie. This is GW. This is one of the feeder schools that fed into TC Williams, which is now Alexandria City. Yates Automotive here on the corner is celebrating 60 years this year, since 1964. So the story I have for this location in reference to Jim Morrison actually took place on this opposite corner over here. They're now townhouses, but when Jim Morrison was in school, that corner was occupied by the discontinued fast food restaurant chain Burger Chef. In one of these Facebook groups that I'm a part of, it's called Back in the Day Northern Virginia, somebody made a comment on here that does anybody remember the Burger Chef that burned down? Apparently the Burger Chef burned down in 1969. Tragically, it was either a 15 or 16-year-old employee that died. I believe it was a kitchen fire. The restaurant was never rebuilt, and instead these townhouses went in here, and you can see these townhouses are at least 50 years old, so that all matches up. The one interesting story I have, apparently, according to this one gentleman on the Facebook post who had gone to school at the same time as Jim Morrison but didn't really know him, apparently Jim Morrison hated Burger Chef. Now, I don't know if that was because it was too corporate man or he just hated the food. Burger Chef was a national chain at that point, actually bigger than McDonald's, and I believe there were locations in Florida and in California where he had lived previously. So it could have been an issue that he just didn't like Burger Chef. But this gentleman said that one time he remembers seeing Jim Morrison outside basically just wandering up and down the sidewalk kicking rocks. And I guess his friends were inside probably grabbing food and he was waiting for them to come out. Said it was a very strange story, but I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun. I don't know how true that is, but I thought I would share it here just regardless. You know, actually, as I'm walking away, I forgot to tell this story. You know who was also spotted at this Burger Chef and who apparently loved it, and I think did a couple promotional appearances here, was Willard Scott. So Jim hated it, Willard loved it. Behind me there is the intersection of Fontaine Street and Braddock Road. And it doesn't appear to be a bus stop anymore, but there are bus stops all up and down here at Braddock Road. It's the Dash bus. This was one of the two buses that Jim could have taken on his jaunts to downtown Washington, D.C. They would have dropped him off somewhere near 12th Street Northwest. And I can't stay here too long because I'm kind of parked illegally, but this is the corner of Woodland and Russell Road. This was another stop that Jim could have possibly taken the bus into Washington. Again, I don't see a DC Metro bus sign, but I think there is a Dash bus stop over there. I'm gonna go check it out. I take it back, there was one right behind me. I didn't see it when I was making the video, but this is the Dash bus. It looks like it's just Alexandria and it goes to the Braddock Road Metro. So maybe, I don't know if the Metro, I don't think the Metro existed, but this might have been a different way that he could have gone downtown. Probably was a DC bus, but this just goes to the Metro, which I do not believe the subway existed when he was here. I think it came a little later. You know, the one unfortunate part about doing these videos when you're at private residences is you do feel like a bit of a stalker. I drove by Jim's house to show you it once more time since I was on the same street, and I literally blew right by it just to show you the bus stop. And it looks like the owner actually is outside, older owner, outside on the hill mowing the grass. So I'm just gonna show you here real quick. You see the owner is pushing that lawnmower up and down the hill. But that was Jim's house. That was a Morrison residence when he was a senior in high school. I probably should go ask, but I never know. This is such a private family. They've been the owners now for so long that an online listing doesn't even exist for this house. You can't even view inside unless you have been in it or you're friends or family of this family. So I'm going to leave them alone. But I just thought it was kind of interesting. This is the first time I've actually seen anybody at this house with as many times as I've been by it. But if you want to get a better look at the house, I definitely show it in more thorough depth in that first video. Go back and look at that, and then I tell some stories about the house also. Just down the street here in Jefferson Park from where Jim lived as a senior in high school, he lived here for a very, very short time with a fellow military family. Let's go check out the house, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. According to Mark's book, in the fall of 1958, Steve Morrison had been promoted from commander to captain and was due for assignment at the Pentagon. Shortly after New Year's Day in 1959, Jim was sent from Alameda, California, ahead of his parents and siblings, to stay with the Morehouse family here in Jefferson Park. The Morehouses were also a Navy family, and Jim and their son Jeff were the same age and had grown up on the different assignments together. Later that month, the rest of the Morrison clan moved into the home that we just visited. Okay, now we are clear across town in Falls Church, Virginia, out front of the Oak Street Elementary School. This is one of those crowdsourced locations. I knew, or I had read, that Jim's family had lived in this area probably sometime in the 1950s for a very short time period. This is a school I wasn't quite sure of. It's because when Jim was here, it probably was called Thomas Jefferson. This school was built in 1948, so it would have been relatively new when he attended. You can see that it has been heavily remodeled, and the school is actually located on Oak Street, and this is a very old neighborhood. I believe it's called the Greenway area of Falls Church. A quick search online shows that this school welcomes 3rd grade through 5th grade students. I don't know if that was the case when Jim was here. If so, that means then that he was here sometime between 3rd and 5th grade. It could have been different back in the 1950s when he would have attended this school. Now, it's clear this school was heavily remodeled. It may have been rebuilt completely. I don't even see any signs of its original structure. It probably was 1 floor, maybe 2 at the most. I can give you a view of the surrounding area. You can see that these are newer houses, but then there's older houses up beyond it. It's a very, very small street. So I do know the house. I have the address of the house that they supposedly lived in, which is not far from here, maybe a few blocks. If you're looking for location, we are right in the city of Falls Church, right off of 29 Lee Highway. And I believe the house is maybe only 2 blocks from here. So let's go see if we can find that to end this video. Okay, so I was wrong. We actually are about a mile or so away from the school. This is the Greenway Downs community, which I take it has been here a long time just by the look of the houses. These houses are very old. It's actually a mix of older and newer construction here in Falls Church. This house, reportedly the Morrisons lived here. Again, I don't know when, because they skipped around a lot, as I've mentioned in previous videos. I also found out that when Jim died, his father gave an exclusive interview, and he mentioned they also lived in Bethesda, Maryland, which had gone unreported previously. So it's really hard because they never actually had a record of where they lived, and it's really hard to find these records now. So a lot of this, again, is crowdsourced. So thanks to you guys for giving me information. This video could not have happened without a lot of your input, so I do appreciate that. So the road we are on here is Jefferson, and it looks like the house is right over here. So I'm gonna go see if we can get a closer look. Okay, so I was actually wrong. I was standing right next to it and didn't even realize it, but it's right here. This was the Morrison residence, supposedly. All right, guys, I think I'm going to end the video here. Oh wait, check it out. I forgot to tell you about a cool adventure I took last winter. It's one y'all had been asking me about. The story goes that either when Jim moved to Florida or when he died, his family reportedly donated his massive personal collection of books to the Alexandria City Library, which was one of his favorite places to inhabit. One of my subscribers commented that he kept a library book that had a checkout card with Jim's name signed on it. I thought that was really cool. So on this day, I wanted to check with a curator or a librarian to see if they had that information about those books. Unfortunately, they couldn't give me any info about the donated books. It wasn't in their records, but they also have a special collections from the area with historical records and photos dating back hundreds of years. I couldn't take any photos inside, but I went through about 13 yearbooks from George Washington High School dating from 1950 to 1963. I found the photos of several other famous people that I'll cover in future videos, and the high school senior photo for Jim that has been widely shared on the internet. I had a great time chatting with the librarians about local history, and they invited me to check out their other crosstown location. All right, guys, we are out here at the library in Alexandria on a very cold day. We're off of Duke Street, and today I want to see if we can give credence to the fact that Jim Morrison's family donated all of those books that were in the basement that belonged to him, the ones scavenged from thrift stores, the books on philosophy and history and poetry, to see if anybody has a record of those here in Alexandria.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. If it's already there, that was my question. But that's my question. How long does it take for them?
So I just finished up here at the Beatley Library. I wasn't here very long. This is much newer than I thought it was. It's a big library, but they don't have the collections They don't have the older books. I actually got given an email address for someone to contact, and it'll go to a team of research assistants, librarians, and we'll figure out if those books are around. I have long speculated though, since that was so long ago, that those books, the ones that he marked notes off in, are either in private collections and the library just sort of got rid of the rest. Because remember, they were already thrifted books when Jim purchased them in the 60s. So if they've even survived, the bad ones were probably sold off by the library. The ones that may have had his notes or may have been considered more special might be in private collections. It's always sort of bittersweet when I come to the end of one of these Jim Morrison videos, because I always find myself ending it in one of these quiet, peaceful neighborhoods, which is wild because it's so far removed from the absolute chaos and self-destruction that occurred at the end of his life. So anyway, thank you guys for following along. Hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. If you did, please hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see if we can get better numbers than my first Jim Morrison video did, which has really exploded. So thank you guys for watching and for all your comments. Thank you for leaving likes. Please feel free to do it on this video as well. It's weird, man. It's like we're walking with the ghost of the Lizard King himself. So that's it for me. I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace.